Um, okay. Didn't, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Hey.
Probably a bit unlucky with the DRS and thought Sri Lanka got the better of the conditions when 4 of their guys got COVID the night before, and I thought it was a good toss to lose. Kumar Dharmasima is Sri Lankan. It's actually good for the World Test Championship. It's just brought a bit more even, a bit more interest for the other teams. Other teams in it. Yeah, I thought they got a bit lucky in the end. Sri Lanka sort of scraped that by an innings and 39 runs.
Doesn't it feel kind of safe though?
What? No,
because
I was hiding under a pillow before.
well, I don't know. Been a lot of effort to make over the Australian side for the last 4 or 5 years, basically since someone walked onto the field with sandpaper. A lot of efforts.
Yeah,
allegedly.
That's allegedly.
Is
that's
it?
Like, has yet to be proven.
Right. I see some of those.
That's not what I saw.
Those pockets still exist. Okay.
I thought yeah, no, it was Cameron Bancroft's. It was the inside of his like sunglass case. Just
Okay. It was actually grains. What was that? It was grains off the ground on sticky tape. Anyway.
Yeah, bit of tape, bit of batting tape, and then off the rough.
I'm just saying, like, there's been a lot of efforts to make over the side, and some of it's been successful. You know, there's some better people have come in to the team and stuff like that, and they've got a couple of different philosophies and some different words and shit. But you know, nothing realer than just a couple of blokes coming left arm over on a ragger that about half an hour earlier wasn't, and we can't play. There's a certain safety to it. I feel connected to the players of old, you know, like and there is. I'll pull up my blanket tonight here in Darwin. It's a dry season, but it's cold dry, and there'll be a certain snugness to that sleep because I've seen that before.
Sure.
I've seen it before, and as it sort of got to 7, 8, 9 wickets, I was like, "Yep, let's finish it now." I've seen this. We're done.
Yeah. I think what happened was, Pez, when at the change of innings, I think Australia went for the light roller, and they should have gone for the heavy roller. I think that's what's happened there. So it was a bit uneven.
Mate, it was a great final innings. He goes, I know we've got to talk about Chandimal and stuff, but none for 49 to 3 for 57 just before tea. I mean, I have like fucking seen that. I've just seen it. Like, none for 49, you're starting to go like, we're getting none down. And like, you start doing the maths, you're like, and as you're doing the maths, you're like, it can't happen. There's too long to go. Too many good balls here. Yeah. And then it's just like, no, it's 3 for. And there's reviews being burnt. You got 1 review left. Guys are upset. Fucking, you know, you're starting to think about selections. It was good gear. And I did get a text from a player who would know, not in the team at the moment, or in consideration anymore. Couldn't have been in a better position to win this one. COVID hit Sri Lankans, one up in the series. Smudge and Marnus hundreds. Just can't play left arm spin.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, the Pez, you know, just like, you know, some things are bigger, you know, just than just the game of cricket. You know, obviously, like, lots happening, change in sort of Sri Lanka. I think it's actually really good for I'm burning fucking effigies of every one of these coats in the Australian team tonight. Fucking fuck that. Fuck what's happening in Sri Lanka. I want to win 2-0. So my team gets to play a game in June at Lords in London.
Yeah. Mate, that was, he goes, that was a, tell you what, like, first game, absolute crapshoot. And Australia got the best of it. This was, this was a thorough dismantling. It was a comprehensive dismantling of Australia, like, by a side that played excellently to its own conditions. This is the kind of manner of defeat we expect when Australia goes to India. There was, apart from a couple of good sessions early from Australia, Sri Lanka were just unimpeachable here. They were on top of us at all costs and all times, and they were good value for it. Yes, Damascena didn't hear Chandimal's nick. He tried his best in a couple of areas, to be fair, but that really has nothing to do with it. You know, like I know you got things to say. I'm keen to understand like where it went wrong for Australia, but they were fucking comprehensively outplayed across all facets. Really,
my actual feelings about this is that this is a stunning victory for Sri Lanka. Stunning. Like, in the context of losing the first game 10 wickets, 4 changes the night before the game because 4 blokes go down with COVID, 3 debutants. Chandimal hasn't hit big runs in a long time, and he scores the highest score ever by a Sri Lankan against Australia. And then Jayasuriya takes 6 for 100 and whatever in the first innings, 6 for 59 in the next innings. It's a stunning victory, and but at the same time, I mean, Australia's lack of and poor use of the review system has again cost them, because I mean, Chandimal hits 180 after he was out, and the lead in the first innings was at 190. Now, like, you know, that could have happened, but it didn't. So, you know, but I suspect that actually, I mean, that's actually turned the entire game, that point. But from there, you're entirely right. I mean, I think the last wicket they put on, what do they put on here? They put on 50 for the last wicket. That makes it a 140 run lead instead of 190. Then that makes it a little bit closer. Then Sri Lanka would have had to chase a very difficult 7 in the last innings, and anything could have happened. But mate, I mean, Russell Arnold, you said yesterday on yesterday's show that Russell Arnold was talking about how games tend to go at Galle, and the first test was not indicative of how matches tend to go here, and we saw this coming. But I mean, the fact that Australia had to spend 181 overs in the field, didn't have much going for them, burnt reviews too early, etc., etc. Little 50-50s didn't go their way throughout the entire game, I suppose, but it's a stunning victory. But I also think that like an innings and 39 runs isn't necessarily like, is that stupid? Is that stupid to say like it's on a fucking pumping? Lost one innings and 39 runs. I mean, but what I'm saying is I think the game turns on a moment which effectively costs Australia 180 runs, which is the entire game. Do you know? Am I being ridiculous?
I know what you're saying, but I think that like test matches go for so long that you can. There are ways to show whether you're good value on those wickets, and I don't like. I think Sri Lanka proved over the course of the game, like at all moments, you know, at basically all phases of the game, that they were playing much better cricket than Australia. I mean, the thing that I come to is like our spinners and bowlers generally were just nowhere near as like penetrative as Sri Lanka's bowlers. Like they still had to bowl in that first innings. Sri Lanka, they still looked a little bit more dangerous than our guys. And yeah, I suppose you expect that with home bowlers bowling at home, but yeah, like you know, I thought that was an area where there was a big difference between both teams. You know, we just couldn't get them out, but some of that is due to their good batting as well. Like I'm looking at all facets of the game, and I'm thinking, well, I think Sri Lanka were just better. Were just better than us. Sri Lanka, Chandimal nicks. And he's out. Does Sri Lanka capitulate after that? I don't know. Other blokes scored heaps of runs as well. And then our bats, well, they looked horrendous in the second innings. You know, they looked like they had nothing. Yep. So I don't know. I think they just absolutely deserve it. I think that it's a full retraction and apology for claiming that we just simply outskilled them, because it was literally the reverse.
Absolutely.
We were outskilled by them. And my favourite part was Damascena giving Cummins out at the end, inconsequentially, but there were 2 yellows. And then afterwards, he looked towards Michael Goff, and he actually rolled over with the wrist just to let Michael Goff knew that he'd picked the wrong one. Or the off speaker, the doucher or whatever. Yeah. The guy on the nets who does that. Yeah, pick that. Yeah, just Damascena.
Yeah. I think Bradman did that when he got bowled by Eric Hollies for this. Yeah, same thing. I picked the wrong one. Right. I picked the wrong one. Why didn't you hit it?
Picked it.
Why didn't you hit it then?
Yeah, still picked it.
Yeah. He wasn't any good against spin either. Yeah, my favorite thing about David Seaman was that like he was playing catch up in the end. You know, like umpires have bad games, whatever. Like it just happens. But like his head was so gone. His head was gone. He was like reviewing fucking bump balls or full tosses. It was just and then there was a play and miss where Stark off who was it, one of the tail played and missed, no noise anywhere, bit of a half appeal. He was like, yep, definitely, I'll give you guys that one back. Yep, his head was gone. Anyway, whatever. Mate, I thought it was interesting in terms of now Swepson's played a handful of games for Australia in Pakistan, now in Sri Lanka. And look, Pakistan flat as fuck. And the first innings he bowled well. I thought he's actually bowled well here in this game. He's played 38 overs, 3 for 103. I don't think he's bowled a bad spell. But I can understand two things: how Harath has taken 420-odd test wickets and why Agar probably would have played ahead of him. Left arm around the wicket to right-handers. When it's at the stumps, you're just in the game all the time. It's LBWs, outside edges. It's that natural variation we see all the time, especially with Axar Patel in India as an example. Jadeja, same thing. Steve O'Keefe, all those guys. Even Leach to a lesser extent when he was in India. That you're just in the game all the time. And Swepson, he's got wonderful control. He's bowled economically. But it's you need to take 20 wickets, and on raging turners, that this wasn't as much, though it still was in the game.
Perhaps even more important
in the game.
Yeah, more important to have a left arm bowler when it's not so much a raging turner, but it just does a little bit, and you can work angles and stuff like that. Look, I think that's a really good point, and I was really keen to see Swepson play, probably both test matches as a result of the investment in him and all that kind of stuff. But I think that is also lesson learned as well. Look, Agar was injured, and so I suppose he would have played if he was available, I think. I don't know. But I do think that's still another question, like, like that. I'm not raising or putting question marks around Nathan Lyon at the moment. Like he's kind of answered his critics a few times at the very last moment when he had a lot of pressure on him and stuff like that. And he came through in the first test, got those 9 wickets, etc. But he had a game where he bowled 64 overs and he looked pretty benign, to those bats. And then their spinners come on and it looks anything but. Probably a question of the quality of the bats facing those spinners and the familiarity as well. But there's that. And yeah, it makes me think of, like, I do. Games like that do make me think about Steve O'Keefe, and like wishing he was still fit and knowing that he would be handy. Because it's funny when you were just mentioning before, they put on extra 50 at the end. Even as Sri Lanka were getting close to Australia's target, like that game was still on so much, but it sort of somehow felt disappointing, but that we hadn't gone and smashed them again. But like, keeping them to 450 or something like that would have meant game on again and a different kind of match pressure situation for younger guys. But they batted Australia out of the game where there was nowhere to hide anymore, and it was just a matter of time and all that sort of shit. I think it's a really interesting result insofar as it's the first blot on the copybook of Andrew McDonald and Pat Cummins. Now Test cricket is real for those guys. The honeymoon is over. Looking forward to the comments of Justin Langer's teammates in the next few days, genuinely, because they just been waiting and those knives are fucking sharp. But I think that this kind of loss, like this loss to me looked like this was a good cricket wicket. Brad Haddon made this point many times on TV. Like there's runs at the start. There's a bit of reverse for the quicks. Stark ended up taking 5, didn't he, or something? So 4, sorry. And there's lots for the spinners later on. There was a bit for everybody in it. This looked like a really classic, like, Asian loss for Australia. Like that is how you beat Australia in Asia. You exploit the fact that their spinners can't get as much out of the deck as your spinners can, and then their techniques don't hold up as the game breaks up. And so it's a question of systems and structures for Australia. This loss, this loss exposes Australia's weaknesses, because you've made this point through the game. Australia stuck at it for the most part. There weren't any super bad spells. None of the bats threw their wickets away. I know people tried to argue that Carey did that with a reverse sweep. It's literally like forward defence for him. And he's got a lot out of that shot as well. So I don't think any of them really threw it away. They were just beaten usually. This was a real old school exposure of technical deficiencies with the bat and a lack of wile and guile and fizz with the ball when it comes to the spinners. And they're long-standing questions in Australian cricket. I don't think they're questions of character or tactics or little things that didn't go their way here or there. This is a game where Marnus and Steve Smith made hundreds. We were really well set. Nathan Lyon's coming off 9 for Sri Lanka's got 4 COVID guys, and we still just got exposed and beaten easily, roundly, dispatched.
The 200s, outside of that, Kawaja at 37 in the first innings. No one else got to 30 in the game. Marnus got 30 in the second dig. So there's a couple of guys failing there. And I also wonder, we're focusing on Australia, but guys, that is our want, being, Australians ourselves, despite some people thinking that we're English sometimes, depending on which game we're sort of covering.
Yeah.
But I guess we technically are. But
speak for yourself.
It's interesting. It's interesting with the makeup of Australia's top 7. Noticed this before. Kawaja, Warner, Head, Carey. You got 4 guys in the top 7 who are left-handers. Look, they are Australia's best 7 batters that you can put in that spot. But it is interesting, especially when India's around the corner, it being 6 months away, of course. That they're in the game, the left-handers. I mean, it looks harder and a lot of ball spinning away from that. Again, everyone's got a finger spinner, and it just looks like you can be out multiple ways as a left-hander against spin. And there's another thing I want to think about as well, is that like when England one of the last teams to win in India and win just about everywhere around the world, and that was like in 2011, that era. And they had 2 world-class spinners in their side. They had Swan and Panesar operating. And there's not many teams like Western teams that have 2 world-class spinners in their side. And I don't necessarily think Australia do either. I don't think if Agar plays that Australia win the game. But it's interesting that like you need to have that skill set. And do Australia have that skill set? Probably not.
No.
Probably not. And there's questions around Lyon. I mean, there are. I mean, again, he's bowled 60 something overs, 64 overs, 2 for 194, going at 3 and over, just completely fine. But Sri Lanka would be looking at it and be like, well, that guy got 9 last game. If we can just see him off, Swepson doesn't really look that threatening, we can probably get some runs elsewhere. I mean, Starks actually bowled sensationally in this game, 4 for 89 off 29, and he got pumped by Chandimal at the end there as well. So I think he was like 4 for 60 at one point, off about 25. So he was actually Australia's best bowler.
He goes, looking to India, because I suppose that's the next test series in similar-ish conditions.
Right.
Like Travis Head, left-hander. He looks all at sea against quality spin, Heady, with respect to the bin lid. And and Glenn Maxwell's waiting in the wings there. He's a right-hander. He has 100 in India. He probably bowls better than Travis Head. Travis Head might maintain his spot in this game due to a sort of freakish 4 for 10, but you can't say no to that, especially if you might be expecting similar-ish conditions as well, which they didn't get. But I would have thought, regardless of what happens this summer, and because you're just playing on completely different decks.
It's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
It is hard, because if Travis Head has a breakout summer or scores 300s, then you're going to start him against India. But
and Maxwell doesn't play red ball cricket.
Exactly.
He doesn't play Shield cricket, so it's like
But you can say now for sure that Maxwell is a better prospect on those decks. I'm not saying he's a better prospect in so far as that will completely change Australia's fortunes, and that if they'd picked Maxwell in this game, it would have made much of a difference. But these conditions are clearly so different to what happens at home. And look at what happens at home when we play Sri Lanka. It's not even a contest, And
get him on the Gabba.
All that sort of shit. No, but it just goes to show, that incumbency shouldn't really play as big a role. Like when there's such a gap between these sides, depending on conditions, then your first 11 should be very flexible. And I think with Australia, we've been prepared to do that with bowlers quite a lot. Some of that's fitness related or whatever, but we're not. It's still not as de rigueur to do it with bats. And I think it's really fair to say now with these performances that like someone like Glenn Maxwell with 100 to his name in India, and he's going to have his class next February. Is he should be ahead of Travis Head now, in that pecking order. It's just that he won't play a game with that coloured ball for a long time. So, in fact, he probably won't play a game, a red ball game. But
yeah. Yeah. Mate, I completely agree. I think I said this maybe during England's tour of India, that like it's just your best bats at the MCG or Headingley or whatever it's just a different skill set entirely. Horses for courses, you're entirely right. I'm just backing up what you said. This has all been thanks to Acco Pairs, unless you need to say anything else. We're doing the main podcast tomorrow, covering obviously the white ball series between India and England over there in the UK as well. And wrapping up this series, I suppose, with some deeper thoughts. We've got Barney Ronne on the show as well. Fingers crossed all that goes through. Things can change pretty quickly as well with all that stuff. But yeah, anything else you want to say apart from this abject failure? I think the series actually finishes 5-5 over a 10-game series. So abject failure, effigies.
Abject failure, effigies. Yeah, Cummins out. Warner in, overturn the leadership ban, and justice for Warner, and only 3 of them new. And also, just a shout out to Chandimal, who batted fucking amazingly, in case people are like, you're not giving due credit. I thought he was exceptional. And Jai Surya, 12 and he was just bowling those flying saucer left armers, just hitting unbelievable areas. I thought that was good shit and good gear.
Yeah. And I hope the Sri Lankan team tonight heads straight to Colombo, head to the presidential palace, do some fucking WWF shit on the president's bed.
Yeah.
Have you seen those clips on Twitter? Sensational. More of that gear. Hope they celebrate hard tonight. Long and hard into the night. Fair play to them and their team, the team that they support. 1-1 series draw. Good result for Australia. Undefeated in Asia so far this year in terms of a series. So all looking pretty good. All looking pretty good. 1 foot in the Test Championship final. All right, see you guys later. Cheers.
How do we lose? We lost at Gaul. La Familia.